All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Black Tech Experience. I'm your host, and today we are talking about GitHub's new AI tool that is going to revolutionize the entire industry and what I think it as well as is generative AI the next .com bust? And before we get into that, who am I? I'm Rami. I'm a software engineer. I work at companies like Google, Dell, Twitch, ex-employees, and I have graduated from Fisk University with my computer science degree, as well as Cornell with my master's in computer science. And yeah, pretty much know I've been around the block. And so before we get into the AI tools and the various different possibilities of this being the next .com bust, I would like to remind you guys, my previous stream, we were talking about how scary is AI. If you saw, we were talking about Elon Musk and how he said generative AI is 5 years away. And he believes that AI is going to be smarter than any one person next year. If not next year, in the next 3 years. Do you know what that looks like? That looks like you being able to go home and talk to your child and homeschool him without him or her, or they, him or her, without necessarily the need of a school, instead of having to be at the mercy of whatever school district that you're at. Maybe you don't even have the opportunity for the best education. Now you get a chance to homeschool your child with the same level that Donald Trump's son is able to teach his child with. Can you imagine having a fever or a cold and not needing insurance, not needing to go to schedule an appointment, but being able to talk to a chat GPT like model and be able to diagnose and maybe get your medicine from there already ordered to you? Could you imagine being in business, right? You have this mobile app and you don't want to hire egotistical, greedy engineers like myself. You don't want to hire us, right? Because we take too long. We're expensive. And so you're able to write your next mobile app just upon from text all the way through to the end product. This is the world that Elon Musk is talking about. And it's scary. It's scary to me that we could only be 1 year away from that, or even 5 years away from that. I was hoping, right? I was hoping it would be 10 or 15 years, right? But change is coming. I'm absolutely sure of it. And we have to be ready to take advantage of these new tools before we get left behind. I will say, if you've ever ordered a Cybertruck from Elon Musk, if you're still waiting to get a ticket to his Mars colony that he still is promising that should have already been here, you are right to be skeptic about what Elon Musk says. However, the rate of change in technology has always been rapid. And one day, the models that we think are so smart will look dumb in comparison. And the models will start writing other models. And so I don't know how far we are from that. I think we're going to take a look at these GitHub and what they see as next AI tool. So let's get into a little bit of that. And I'm going to mark it down right there. So what is GitHub Copilot Workspaces? Well, if you don't know, GitHub has one of my most favorite tools in the world, which is GitHub Workspaces. And if you're a software engineer and you have, or you are a programmer or you're a student and you have ever spent the time to install software, you can understand how much of a pain it is. And it only gets worse as you get into the industry because we have millions of lines of code. And somebody needs to, or when a new developer gets onboarded to a team, the new developer has to spend time installing the new software on his computer. And depending on whether he has different operating systems from what the developers actually wrote the code in, it would make the process so painful. It would take weeks. Deploying code might take weeks. And with the revolution of Dockerized containers and Dockerized containers, as well as lightweight IDEs, GitHub has come out with this new tool where a developer could go into a URL. The URL would spin up the computers that it needs, and he could write programs from there. And so now they're integrating with their tool Copilot, which is an AI generation tool. And it made headlines. It was really good at leak code, but nobody can use this stuff in order to write code. Excuse me. Nobody is able to use this stuff to write the majority of their code. It's great for one-off tasks. And so they're combining these two things, or at least that's what I know. They're combining Copilots with workspaces. That way, the time for you to get integrated in a new project is faster. And then you're on top of that, you'll be able to use your new AI Copilot tool. So how does this compare to, if you've seen one of my previous videos, maybe I'm flashing on the screen over here, Devin AI was saying that we don't want to be your co-pilot. We're going to do the whole thing. We're going to be an AI engineer. We're going to prepare the meal. And what co-pilots is saying, hey, like, we don't want to take the engineer out of the process just yet. We want the engineer to guide the AI in order to make changes in the code base. I think this is a very important part of the AI revolution, because before you can make engineers obsolete, you must show that AI can interact with human beings frictionlessly, where I could stick an AI in for a new team member, for a member on my team, and that member the AI would be able to pick up where he left off, as well as maybe let go for another expert to come in. And so I think this tool is going to be extremely important. I've been hearing bad reviews about it, but let's get in and watch the video. I've been saving it just for my reaction. Let's see. There we go. Actually, I'm already into it. Oh, I gotta turn that one down. Did spend a lot of money on that commercial. And I think it's exciting. It's like, my first impressions of it is it does seem interoperable with human beings. And I think this is not going to be that useful with today's AI or co-pilots, or I'd have to see. But it could make one-off tasks very easy. I haven't been thinking about making a code along live on Sundays. Let me know if you would like that on this as a side note. But yeah, I am a little bit skeptical. I have never used a GitHub Copilots for a side project just yet, but people have stellar reviews. At the same time, I do find that in my day-to-day work as a software engineer, I'm not able to completely, ChatGPT cannot do my job. And I often find it's 90% correct, with the 10% being something um, just that I have to go do myself. And that 10% may not sound like much to y'all, but that 10% can take days. So um, it is something that is useful. And I would like to play around with this tool. I got a viewer in the chat. That's my brother. Appreciate your support. Glad you could make the show. And let's see. Any closing remarks? Yeah, I think from this, I'm excited. I would need to use the product in order to know how useful it is. I used to be a big open source contributor. Hopefully, they have a plan for everybody, not just one person. I mean, for open source to be free. But yeah, if it is free, I'm pretty sure they're going to use it to make engineers obsolete as fast as possible. But you never know. You never know. I want to watch one last video on GitHub Copilots, which is by Fireship. I want to see his impression of it, see if I have any other things that I've forgotten. Hopefully it'll be good. Let me see. There it is. Cool. Yeah, and also before I get into this, I have another caveat. Like, do I use code spaces on my day-to-day job? Does the company I'm with actually use code spaces? The answer is no. And I think it's and that can show you the rate of adoption of new technology. Like I've seen entire company like fixes already be out for bugs for entire companies, but they have a standardized process for adopting new technology. And the reason probably why my company doesn't have GitHub code spaces is because its code is, we have our own pre-built custom GitHub workspaces. Not workspaces, but we all have our own code repository and keeps our code safe and away from other people. So I don't know if this is something that we're gonna see an instant adoption with. Let's see, I got a question. Time for bed on the East Coast. Yeah, let me know in the comment section if you guys feel like I need to change this time. This is like right after work for me. And yeah, I'd love to have more of y'all supporting, but yeah, just let me know. But back into the next video.
Had an issue on GitHub. That's because yesterday, GitHub proudly unveiled its latest crime against humanity, a brand new tool that wants to change the way we write code called Copilot Workspace, a tool that can write, test, and execute its own code entirely from natural language. I think we all knew this day was coming. Copilot is no longer just the Copilot, but finally taking over as captain. It's not all bad news though. We humans will still have jobs as flight attendants who deal with the angry, confused customers.
That mother back there is not real.
In today's video, we'll find out exactly how Copilot Workspace works and answer the question of should I be worried, or is this just more AI programming hype? It is May 1st, 2024, and you're watching The Code Report. It's been just over 1 year since GPT-4 was released. And at that time, I predicted a tool like this was coming, a tool that can plan, write, test, and execute its own code using only natural language instructions. Like Jensen Huang recently said, now everybody is a programmer. And Copilot Workspace brings us closer to that vision. Last month, we talked about Devin, which has now been thoroughly debunked, and Copilot Workspace is similar to it, but gives the developer a lot more control. Let's take a look at how it works. You can trigger Copilot Workspace by clicking the code button, then describe a feature that you want to implement implement in the code. Or you can start with a GitHub issue, then open it up in a workspace. It'll then take you through a series of steps, with the first step being the specification. Here, it will look at the current state of files in the repo related to the issue, and then propose the edits that it's going to make in these files to fix the issue. What's cool about this is that you can edit this document, so if the plan doesn't look right, you can modify it to guide the AI in the right direction. After the spec is in place, the next...
I'd be curious to know how good that like edit feature is, like, because I imagine there's a reason for it. But yeah, ChatGPT will give you better answers, like if you steer it in the right direction. But yeah, I think it's just, we're gonna have to wait and see.
Next step is the plan. Here it will list out all of the affected files and describe the code changes in each one of them. And as before, you can edit this document to modify the plan. Then when you submit the plan, it will add these files to a queue where the AI writes all the code to make the changes. From there, you'll be able to open up each file and review the diff to see what actually changed. And of course, you can modify this code as needed. Before we merge this code, we can actually run it either with the integrated terminal or run it in VS Code in the cloud with a GitHub code space. And that means you can run and debug the code as if you wrote it yourself. Looks good to me. Let's now create a pull request, and Copilot will even write the pull request description for you. Pretty cool. And overall, I think Copilot Workspace is a good middle ground where it's not just a simple AI autocomplete, but also not trying to take over too much control like Devin. The big question though is, will this make programmers obsolete? The answer is a lot more interesting than you might think. When it comes strictly to the skill of programming, this is still very much a tool that will just improve productivity without killing jobs in a significant way. In my opinion, the much bigger risk from LLMs and AI is that they could threaten the need to build new software, especially front-end UIs and business-focused applications. For example, a company called Chegg that helps college kids cheat on their homework has been collapsing ever since the rise of AI. That's because it's cheaper and faster to cheat with tools like Claude or GPT-4. And there's many other
I guess those are the people, like, when they talk about software engineers losing their jobs because of AI, I guess that's who they're talking about. But I find, like, I saw another report, like, who has lost their job from software engineering as a software engineer? The question is, is AI the reason why we're in a recession? I mean, not in a recession. Damn, I can't even talk. Is AI the reason why there are not many jobs today? And somebody said software engineers are not with this. There's other reasons why software engineers are losing their job. I have another video. Maybe I'm putting it in the description here. But go check my channel. It says the real reason why hiring has slowed.
businesses affected in similar ways. That's why you see almost every business out there desperately trying to shoehorn AI into their business model somehow before their software becomes totally obsolete. So programmers are becoming more productive, while the traditional software that those programmers know how to build is in many cases being made obsolete by these big general purpose models. That sounds pretty pessimistic, but there's two reasons I'm not worried. Reason number one is that in order to use a tool like Copilot Workspace, you need to know how to read and understand code. It's a huge productivity booster for experienced developers, but can only build trivial things for the average person. It's like giving someone the keys to a fighter jet on their first flying lesson. That flight is not going to end well. But the other reason to be optimistic is that throughout history, every time programming has become easier, it's resulted in more programmers. Keyboards, compilers, and GUIs are all tools that make writing code easier, yet the programmer never went extinct. His kind continues to flourish at the top of the pay scale, and that's likely to continue for at least the next few months until GPT-5 is announced. This has been the Code Report. Thanks for watching, and I will see you.
Man, his videos are all satire now. Yeah, I think the only thing that he has to add is that I would say, yeah, he's definitely on the same side as me, is where we think it's something positive. And let me get close up on myself. Definitely think it's something positive for the industry. And I think, yeah, before you try to replace a job, I think you should make personal preference. You should make engineers a lot more productive in their job. Because even if I had an AI, let's say I had this perfect AI service that could spit out this new blog or this new service easily. So much of software is maintaining it. So much of software is discovering what we want or adding new features. And so if a human being can't come behind the AI, it's almost useless. And so I think a lot of companies are focusing on the what is it, the rainbow, or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, without necessarily enjoying the rainbow or picking up the gold along the way. Because yeah, unrealistic, or I don't know. If you, and let's get a close up back on me. If you look at Sam Altman, he's saying, I don't care how much AI costs, generative AI, no matter how many billions I have to spend or waste, getting to generative AI will be worth it in the long run. And he is right. Generative AI is the space race. It could have, but it's even more important than the space race, actually. Whoever, just as we tried to get to space, and I think maybe we were thinking about colonizing space, and we still haven't. And that should show you the effect of what this AI thing is. Even though we are in this AI race, imagine whatever country, if they're able to beat the AI race, they're able to get it, right? Imagine being able to create the next Google overnight with generative AI. Let's not even say that. Let's say it takes them a month to get a company that can do Google search, right? This would be unprecedented. The poorest country in the world could go from the richest country in the world overnight. And this might even be a political issue, because that much power, if other countries are so much behind that country in the AI race, it could become a threat to national security. So the AI race is it's almost magical. It's almost like we believe that whoever is able to solve this problem will be the number one nation in the world going forward. And so, yeah, it is reminiscent to the dot-com bust, where, if you don't know, the dot-com bust refers to, let me mark this, the dot-com bust refers to the rapid growth and speculation in the late 1990s in the internet-based companies, leading a surge in investment and valuation and the initial public offerings of tech startups. Some of the companies that came out of the dot-com bust were Amazon and Netflix. And so, but some of the companies that failed, I don't know if you guys remember Petco. And basically, when people started understanding how useful the internet could be towards making a business, back in the day, when people said, hey, every business is going to have a website and it's going to be an important part of their business, they would get laughed at. They would get laughed out of their classroom, because the internet back in the day was just this toy for parties. But now, when people were starting to make all these millions seemingly overnight from using the internet, everything changed. All the investors started dumping their money into the market, causing the stocks to have an inflated value. And then suddenly there was a crash, the bubble bursted, and they realized that these $1 million companies were not as valuable as they seemed. And due to that, a lot of people lost their money, and they were in a recession for 6 months to a year. And so this is very similar to what's going on today, in the sense that AI, this new thing, we have all this hope for what it could be and what it will mean for the world going forward. Stocks, if you've been reading the stock market, over and over, you'll see that many people are calling for a recession in mid 2024, and that everything is inflated. The value, you've seen Nvidia stock triple, double, many times, as people feel like this is going to be leading the future. And so we have many, many possible futures. We have the good, the bad, the ugly. And with all that, it's important to realize that how do we recognize whether we're in a bubble? How are we going to move forward in this situation? And so, yeah, I have another video for us to watch that'll hopefully give us some more understanding of what the industry experts are saying AI is, whether this is going to be a bust or it's going to be for the sake of coding. Not coding. Whether generative AI is going to be a good long-term play. So, present. There we go. So let's get into it. I think I've skipped all the way to the part that really matters.
Moment here where AI has gone from a concept to now it's actualizing. And you were so key, you know, and everyone talks about AI. It's the biggest thing, maybe even bigger than the internet. The last time we had this incredible shift in how everybody did everything, it was the internet. And, you know, you were, you know, one of the key people, you know, you had Tim Berners-Lee, and he, you know, developed the World Wide Web. And then you had people like Mark Andreessen with the Mosaic browser. And then really it was AOL and in your company that brought, you know, tens of millions of people, popularized the internet. I mean, how many CD-ROMs did you guys send out back in the day?
A lot. Sorry about that.
And everybody over 40 is like, yeah, I got about 8 of those. Everybody.
Yeah, man. I remember the CD-ROMs from back in the day, like the things that we have to stick in a computer in order to like store memory or something. But yeah, it's been a long time. If you remember what a CD-ROM is, hit the like button.
Who's under 30 here is like, what's a CD-ROM? Yeah. But there were a lot. AOL, if you were around in the 90s, it was AOL really that was bringing you onto the internet. So with that perspective, what do you see? First question would be, what do you see as the similarities and differences right now about this moment here and when it kind of that mid-90s, late-ish, you know, mid to late 90s where you really saw everything go nuts with the internet?
Well, I think one similarity is it's been developing the technology, in this case AI or the internet, for decades, and then hit a acceleration point. So 75 years of investment, including here at MIT around AI. It's really the last 18 months where things have really accelerated because obviously the overnight success of ChatGPT, which was 75 years in the making, and that really created momentum and excitement with entrepreneurs and investors and the general public, and attention from, yesterday we're meeting with some senators in DC around what to do around AI policy and so forth. So it went from, developing in an interesting way, but not really captivating, the moment, not really, kind of capturing the zeitgeist. And suddenly it took over. The same thing was true with AOL. We started in 1985. At the time, only 3%.
Yeah, he is so right. Like AI has been, we've been working on AI for like decades, but it's only in the last 18 months that things have really popped off. And I think there's an industry, there is a quote in the industry, like sometimes 10 years happen in one day, and sometimes one day 10 years can happen. I think I said that wrong, but I think you get the point. Like some days it can feel like 10 years passed, and in 10 years, sometimes it feels like only a day has passed. So
% of people were online, and those 3% were online about an hour a week. And for a decade, from 85 to 95, I'd go to conferences like this and nobody cared about the internet. They're talking about semiconductors, personal computers, software. There's a few of us kind of fringy on the side. They're talking about, the internet. Most people didn't think the internet ever would be a mainstream phenomenon, more like a hacker and computer enthusiast kind of thing. And then in '95 with Netscape IPO and some other thing, it sort of accelerated and became sort of a little bit of a mania. You could tell that because companies would rename themselves something.com, just as now companies are renaming themselves something, AI, to be part of that.
We're
movement.
USSteel.ai. We're a new company.
So, but at the same time, there's tremendous excitement. People do recognize the absolute potential of the technology, how it can transform business, transform society, improve healthcare, all the things that you're all aware of. But there also is a concern, a fear about some of the unintended consequences. In the case of the internet, because it grew so slowly, there was sort of a sense of let's kind of a light touch of regulation. Let's kind of leave it alone. Here, there's a sense that it needs more than that, not too much, because there's obviously a concern if you have too much regulation, it stifles innovation. But nothing is not likely to be the case, whether it be in this country or other countries. So it just shows you it's arrived. It's hit its moment. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. It reminds me of a song that most people in this room are too young to know, a Buffalo Springfield song. Something's happening here. What it is not exactly clear, and that people are trying to figure it out and try to maximize the benefits while also kind of hedging, minimizing some of the potential.
Right. Let's talk about the worst case benefit if generative AI happens. Nobody is going to have a job. Nobody is going to be able to going to go to work. Homeschooling your kids are going to be easy. And this is what Elon Musk is talking about. It's going to happen in the next 5 years when he says that even if every single human being on this planet worked together, we would not be able to come up with the same answers that AI is coming up with. And I think that's a very scary thought, like not being able to be productive. And in that case, they've already talked about having universal income where everybody gets a certain amount and they can do whatever they want in life. But I imagine that the next 5 or whenever generative AI happens, if there is no way for human beings to use the AI in order to contribute to society, we're going to see new levels of chaos that we've never seen before. Because even though people hate their jobs, let me get closer. Even if people hate their jobs, it is the jobs that ground people and give people purpose so that they cannot be left alone with their vices. And so I think the human race is going to go through a period of change. The human race is going to go through a dark period that we've never seen before in any era. Era is what I meant.
Potential risk.
Makes sense. What was the year that you saw the tipping point with AOL?
It was 95. We went from two statistics I remember. I mentioned the initial usage when we got started. The other was we raised $1 million to get started.
$1 million
in 1985, and then and we went public in 1992. The first internet company to go public. And in our IPO, we raised $10 million, and the market value that day was $70 million. And then 5 years later, it was $160 billion. So we'd been at it for a while. It was still growing slowly, and suddenly it really accelerated. The other data point is it took us 9 years to go from 0 to 1 million subscribers. And a couple of years later, we're adding 1 million subscribers every month. And so it was a classic hockey stick that venture capitalists never believe appropriately because it almost never happens. But in that case, it really did happen.
So based on that experience, when do you think we'll see that? Are we there now? Is it 18 months from now, 12 months? Like again, you're looking at a lot of startups, so you're both your history and your field vision here. When do you think we're going to see that mass kind of acceptance and acceleration?
Well, I think we're seeing the massive interest in acceleration and the creation of new companies and a lot more venture capital going into the sector. So that is bodes well for what's going to happen in this next phase.
So let me know in the chat if you're new here. But yeah, I feel like AI has crossed over into the mainstream already. Like, it's a household name. Like, everybody is talking about it, but perhaps not everybody is using it just yet. There are some late adopters that are going to come around. And like anything, like there's some, if you're a software engineer, there's some companies that don't even use the cloud yet. They're still running on their bare metals machines. And I can show you how slow the rate of adoption is. But I think it's kind of funny. AI is definitely going to, you know, how he said at AOL, they were having getting 1 million customers per month. And I think it's going to definitely be that pretty soon, because there are definitely people who are not a part of the wave.
But what these things typically follow, and maybe this is a little different, but typically, including with the internet, there's this initial phase of people are working hard on it, but nobody's really paying attention. Then it moves into a phase where everybody's paying attention. It's a little bit too much hype, a little bit too much mania. Then it moves into a phase where it's kind of like a correction, a little bit disappointment. 2000, for example, a lot of the .com companies went public. A lot of them ended up going bankrupt, and it was sort of this viewed as this internet nuclear winter. And you know, the ones that survived then were able to accelerate, the Googles, the Facebooks, et cetera, and really become kind of significant, iconic kind of companies. So we clearly moved from that first phase where people were working hard on the research here at MIT and other places, but it wasn't really getting significant traction in the marketplace. And now we're in that phase where there is a lot of attention, and hopefully we'll figure out a way to move to the next phase in a way that is not quite as disruptive as it was with the .com side, where like 90% of the companies kind of ended up going bankrupt.
Well, one major difference. Who here is?
That's crazy. 90% of the companies end up going bankrupt, and yeah, that could possibly happen. Like, let's say Elon Musk has the next generative AI application. He could drive out of business let's say Google, because Google looks the most vulnerable at this current moment. Google looks like the company, like, you guys think YouTube is Google's big cash cow, but it's still actually Google's search. Actually, I don't know. It might be YouTube now. I gotta look at the numbers, but advertisement. When people pay for advertisements, that's how YouTube makes its money predominantly. And so, with the rise of text-to-speech models, people are still kind of wondering, how do we show people ads? How do we monetize this thing? Because back in the day, Google wasn't monetized, right? And so, it might be some of the companies that we thought would never fail, we might see fail when a company has generative AI.
Kind of a startup entrepreneur doing their own thing. Okay, about half. How many are working for like a Google, Microsoft, one of the big guys? All right, so we got the entrepreneurs.
Oh, I like that.
Steve's running scale and size and money to start developing, and where you were able to kind of ground up, and now there's a lot of top down. So how do we make sure that it's not just a 3-player field, and that you've been one of the great evangelists for the reason things work, and the way we stay ahead is because of the entrepreneurs, not because of big tech. But this definitely, there's a risk that this becomes a big tech play.
No, there's a big risk of it, and I do worry that AI, because of sort of as you said, the sort of the table stakes and the need for data and so forth, could result in big tech getting bigger. And you've seen that in the market. There's some companies that have increased $1 trillion in market cap in the last couple of years based on the presumption they're going to dominate this next wave in terms of internet. These are great companies, and they're important companies, particularly in what's now a global battle with China and others around the future. But we can't let this just be around the big getting bigger. We need to make sure the playing field's level, so entrepreneurs with less capital, and also in places outside of Boston or outside of San Francisco, or all around the country, have the opportunity to participate as well. And that is one of the things I've been pushing hard for, including in Washington. I testified at the last Senate AI Summit, and my main message was this, which is we need to make sure that as you think about guardrails, you think about rules of the road, you err on the side of allowing new companies to start and scale, and don't do things that end up entrenching some of the incumbents, regulatory capture issues. And one key part of that is there's a big debate now in Washington, Brussels, other places about open source. And there is a concern, which is understandable, that open source results in losing control over the technology, and some bad things, national security risks, other things could happen. And that is a fair concern.
So he has a point. Like, open source is, if you aren't familiar with that, it's where software engineers and teams can software engineers can produce code or software online, and I or anybody could program it or use it for whatever purpose that we want. And so if you guys don't know, Facebook has their own version of ChatGPT called Llama 3. And Llama 3 is open source. Anybody can use it. And it's better than ChatGPT 3.5, which is insane. Something that, I guess ChatGPT is old, right? Compared to 4. And so we're seeing that the industry is catching up with OpenAI. And going forward, there will not be as much collaboration. So OpenAI came out with something called attention is all you need. It was this breakthrough idea of creating models with transformers. And so for a long time, they were in the lead, but because they were open sourced, everybody was able to catch up. Now that the next breakthrough is going to come at one company, the AI race could be slower in that aspect. At the same time, the AI race is starting to not see as much trouble like raising capital. You have to go back and watch my stream about why the scariest things about AI if you haven't. But there I go down and I break down, what AI needs in order to function successfully. I'm about to sneeze.
But we have to have open source if we're going to make sure that this really is an open platform, a level.
Oh yeah, let me know in the comments who's watching. I'll shout you out.
Playing field, and new companies, including some of those hopefully in this room, are able to launch and scale and become the next Google. And the lesson going back to the internet was, when we got started, the only reason America dominated the internet is because the defense agency, a government agency, DARPA, funded the creation of the internet to create essentially a network that would withstand a nuclear attack, number one. Number two, a judicial decision was made to break up Ma Bell, the dominant, the only monopoly phone company, to create 7 regional Bell companies. That unleashed competition, and that's why the cost of being on the internet went from $10 an hour to nothing because of that competition. So that was a key decision. Another key decision was to essentially commercialize the internet. When we started in '85, it was still illegal for consumers or businesses to be on the internet. Right. It was for educational institutions like MIT or government agencies, not for consumers or businesses. Congress passed the telecom bill to commercialize the internet. And the final one, and the one most important relative to this conversation, is the FCC mandated open access. So they said, we're not going to just create all these different phone companies. We're going to require that those phone companies allow others like AOL to run on their networks. And if that hadn't happened, the cost wouldn't have come down, the innovation wouldn't have accelerated, and certainly companies like ours wouldn't have existed. I don't think America would have led the charge. So how do we take some of those lessons forward here with AI and make sure it is open and new companies can emerge, and it's not just the big tech getting bigger?
Well, and again, that took Washington to bust up AT&T. So what's the prescriptive solution to make sure that we have many, RBox?
Speaking about Washington busting up monopolies, AT&T. If you didn't know, AT&T used to be this bigger company and had to split in 7 because they realized, just too much power in controlling the industry, and they're just too big. And I think that's how Rockefeller did with the oil business. Like, once you corner the market, it's impossible to get new players into it. And that's what the U.S. District Attorney is saying about Apple. With their high prices, as well as not allowing other apps to onboard their own information, the U.S. government is trying to see if it's time to break Apple into smaller companies. And from what I hear, let me get close up on me. From what I hear, busting up Apple is not likely. Like, I guess like these companies have so much power and so much money invested into the government that I imagine anytime if we've seen the U.S. District Office versus Google, not for monopoly, but for privacy issues, and so it's really hard. Usually, these companies just get fined or something, but a lot of things. It's kind of interesting. Like the higher you make it in the company, you start to realize that there are a lot of hidden things going on behind the scenes. Like we've seen with Twitter, how they had this secret tool in order to make certain content go viral. And with that, they're able to control the narrative of the entire world by making something seem as if it is the truth. And so, yeah, OpenAI is important. And I think, yeah, OpenAI, the company, is just nonprofit, but we're still going to have to have checks and balances on these guys. Because, yeah, wait till people start using AI to hack other people. It'll be an event, and it'll be something that we use legislation in order to protect.
We have the ability to start, for companies to start versus 3 companies to dominate.
That's why I made an event like this, having 2,000 people at an event, most of whom are entrepreneurs trying to imagine a future, and not just people representing the larger companies. We've got to lean into that and be backing this next generation of entrepreneurs. In terms of antitrust, it's a bigger, kind of conversation, and it is being considered now with the FTC and others being much more aggressive on antitrust issues. It is going to be harder. It already is harder for big companies to buy other big companies. There's more scrutiny, so that's slowing some of that, which is not all bad. There's at the same time, we don't want to move too far in that direction where it ends up kind of stifling some potential innovation, stifling a path for young companies in some cases should be acquired by the larger companies. So we want to go too far in that direction. But I do think we need to err on the side of making sure AI is open to all, err on the side of making sure the leaders in AI 20 years from now are new companies, new entrepreneurs that didn't exist. Just as with the leaders of the internet today are companies that did not exist. It was not AT&T that dominated that. It was not IBM that dominated. IBM spent $1 billion with IBM, Sears, and CBS to launch an online venture 25 years ago called Prodigy. $1 billion. Ended up, kind of failing. Our little company with $1 million ended up, kind of emerging. But then we got challenged by other companies, and we kind of lost our way, and new companies emerged. That's the arc of innovation. That's the arc of the American, story.
That's right. What you also mentioned before.
And that's the point. Like bad companies, and Amazon, they say that what is it? We have when I was at Twitch, Amazon, right? We have this day zero philosophy or day one philosophy where we start to think about the company, how we're going to affect the users from day one. And what that means is that we were always supposed to be having this idea, what does the customer need today and not tomorrow? Because once we get into this idea that we have already solved all the customer needs is when our company can be beaten by lower companies. And so that is the beauty, the up and down of being a software engineer. Not software engineer or a company, the economic process. So let's get back into it.
The idea that we need to make sure that there are entrepreneurs everywhere that are empowered to do this. You know, I don't know if anybody's seen, you know, Steve has this movement, Rise of the Rest. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Rise of the Rest tour. Steve travels around and has traveled around over the years in an RV, and he pulls into towns like Cincinnati or, you know, Topeka or wherever. And yeah, go Cincy. And it's like Drake getting on the concert tour. He comes out and all the
It's not quite that.
But and the van pulls up and the fans are there. It might be dozens or hundreds versus tens of thousands, but the entrepreneurs in these cities feel seen. And you know, I've been hearing a lot, even walking around today, about the necessity to make sure that AI is inclusive, and that's absolutely right. But there needs to be geographic inclusivity, right?
No, the issue there, we launched Rise of the Rest 10 years ago, actually in Detroit, a city that we then did Forbes 30 under 30 conferences for a number of years. And we'll be going back to celebrate that in a couple of months. And Pittsburgh and others, which are the cities, by the way, that 100 years ago, were the Silicon Valley at the time.
Sure.
You know,
Detroit
was the most innovative city in America, fastest growing city in America.
Detroit. Detroit, the best innovating city in the world. That is crazy to believe. Shout out to Detroit.
City in America, because everybody wanted to be part of the car revolution. Pittsburgh was powering the steel industry, and the industrial revolution was really rocking and rolling. And so these cities had great histories, but there was some risk about not having great futures. And the progress in the last decade has been great. There's 1,400 new venture firms in these Rise of the Rest cities. We, through our own Rise of the Rest seed fund, have made 200 investments in 100 different cities, and one of them actually, a company called Prion in North Carolina. Igor, the founder, will be speaking in a session, one of the next sessions. He was the original founder of the technology that Amazon acquired to create Alexa, and he's in North Carolina building Prion. We backed a company called Tempest in Chicago. Now it's 2,000 employees focused on using AI initially on oncology, so there can be a better diagnosis, a more precise intervention. We founded a company in Baltimore called Catalyte, using AI to identify potential people that has shifted some people that were truck drivers to now being coders. So we're seeing this happening all over. There's one company in Atlanta that's building a Mach 5.
That's crazy to believe. Like, from truck driver to getting the salary of a doctor. I think, let me see. I'm wondering if I should stop it there. But yeah, this is really interesting in the sense that it's definitely a blast from the past, as well as far as what the internet used to be and how the dot-com bust was back in the day. And I think in the best case scenario, let's say generative AI comes out and we're able to use these tools in order to make the economy better, where human beings are still needed, and we have a slow progression into a world where nobody has a job, because the transition from that could be devastating. I think if all those things were to come true, that would be the best case scenario. I think the worst case scenario from AI is that definitely what they talk about. The dot-com bust kills off a lot of companies, and only a few exist, and there's no opportunity for people to get in. And so in that situation, I do think that is a reality. I think the internet, AI is going to be so much more powerful than what the internet was for people without the internet. And I think there's going to be a lot of ramifications from that. In the sense that some people, the transition of power could be very violent, where essentially nobody is able to be productive anymore. And I think the ugliest scenario would be another country, let's say a crueler country, is able to get their hands on generative AI first, and they're able to essentially start a war overnight with the entire world and have domination. Those are the things that I would say would be the worst, the ugliest case scenario with AI. But let me know in the comments if you guys have any other theories about what AI is going to do for the entire world. I think I'm gonna end it here, unless any of my members in the chat want to just have any quick questions that I could answer. I'm gonna give it a few minutes. But yeah, thanks again for the support. I really appreciate you guys. I have been away. I've actually been interviewing. I interviewed with Snapchat and in Bloomberg. Maybe I could talk about that, but maybe that's a story for another day. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing that the market is a lot better than, at least for me. I don't know if a new grads. Nobody's probably hiring new grads at this moment, unfortunately. But it looks like there's a little bit of opportunity to get jobs, even though it's still kind of cut through. And I've seen some really talented people not be able to get a job in this economy. So you shouldn't feel bad. Like one of my friends at Twitch was telling me how the best person on our team, in his opinion, because I think I'm the best. No, one of the best people on this team, one of the best people on the team, they were unable to. They had an interview with Reddit, and they were. What is it? What happened? Oh, they got ghosted, which is hilarious, right? Can you imagine being a software engineer, right? You've made the big numbers. I'm not even gonna say. Let's say you've made money like a doctor, right? You've been in the industry, you've led, you have executed on projects. You've done it all, right? And the same department at Reddit sees you and they need somebody like you, and you interview and they ghost you. It just shows you how much luck is a part of this entire experience. I'm not going to say luck, how much opportunity can be a huge hindrance to your success. Like, it's not good enough to work hard. It's not, unfortunately. And I think this is part of like my Black experience, guys. Like, honestly, I really don't feel like any of my colleagues, regardless of any race, work as hard as me. And that might be boastful. You might think that's boastful, but like, honestly, and I'm not. I'll bring that statement back. Very few people work as hard as me. Very few people that I have seen work as hard as me. But unfortunately, they've come from better households and better families and more opportunities. And shout out to them. And hopefully, I can set my children up for success. But the point I'm trying to get you to understand is that sometimes it does not matter how hard you work. You must be given an opportunity to show what you know. And people are always going to have a pre-selection towards somebody that they don't need to help instead of somebody that could potentially be better. And if you are a student, if you're like me, who spent many years, who suffered many tears wondering when they would get their opportunity, why did they have to wait 3 to 4 years after their companion, their friends? I don't even know what to say. If you're like me and you feel like you wondering why did you have to wait 3 or 4 years to get something that somebody got easily, it's because those people have a better network than you. And so it is so important I find, even for me, that I cannot just be good. I cannot just work hard. I have to look the part, and I have to be connected to the right people. That is just as important as working hard. I won't say it's more important, but it's like the triad. Like, if you get all three, like, you're golden. If you can get two, like, you don't need anything else. If you only do one, if you only work hard and you're not somebody that's other people want to vouch for, then you will struggle. And I think when you look at AI, or if you look at experts, right, and they say, are we worried about AI? Are we worried about AI taking our jobs? They say it's impossible. What I do as a YouTuber, right, has so much more than being cold and calculated and giving people something. It's about connecting with them. It's about showing that we have the same values. And so in the next AI landscape, it's just the people who understand what people want and how to give it to them in the easiest way are going to be successful regardless of competition. So yeah, on that note, I'm out. Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it. And peace.